We collaborated together with the researchers to help build the bridges between research and the work that I'm sure all of you on this call do within the field.
PSH is the leading solution to homelessness for people who have been unhoused for a long time, who have a documented disability, and who would benefit from ongoing support. We know from decades of evidence at this point that PSH works.
The supportive housing, just across all analyses seem to be an extremely effective intervention across age groups, across racial groups, and even for groups that may be the hardest to serve or that have been historically the most vulnerable, we saw the biggest benefits.
The average person who's experiencing homelessness is older now than 10 years ago. Another salient fact, we know that both Black people and Indigenous populations are overrepresented among the homeless population. Another salient fact, housing costs are going up.
Across the board, across all Asian race combinations, you see really large risk reductions associated with receiving the PSH intervention. The main takeaway here is PSH is highly effective, as we already know from prior research, but crucially, we show that it's an equity promoting intervention. And we show this for older adults, especially Black older adults.
That if you just look at the raw population differences, that there are much lower incidence of returns to homelessness or needing COC services after the age of 65 than there is before the age of 65. And so it is the case that generally the availability of more supports to people who are over 65 are supportive and help them maintain their housing stability.
I am a former social worker, and I would hear not infrequently from tenants, this is not my forever home. I would love to get out of here, live on my own eventually without, a case manager coming to my door all the time. 12% were leaving PSH for these settings that were lower level of care or need. The other major finding from the study is that of the folks who exited to this lower level of care, the non-homeless service destinations, only about 1 in 10 were observed using homeless services in the 24 months after that exit. Homeless service systems can responsibly promote voluntary exits from PSH to a lower level of care to establish whether these positive housing and healthcare exit outcomes hold. We do need to look over a longer period of time, beyond 2-3 years. Points to note as we reflect on these findings. So people exiting PSH in this study were exiting voluntarily. So to better understand, the people who are living in PSH and their perspective on this process, I convened a couple of focus groups with current and former PSH tenants for this study. And what they communicated to me, and this is a quote from one of the participants, is that they know best whether they are ready to move on from services or not. And from this discussion, I created this tool, an action plan, the LASH, Life After Supportive Housing Readiness Self-Assessment Tool and Action Plan. It's a much more pared down, so easier to use, simple self-assessment that tenants complete themselves. It can be in conversation with the case manager if desired, and they can keep track of where they're at, develop their own plan. I think my work is showing that PSH works. Right. So there's a misconception. I think that this work is making a case that PSH isn't needed, that people can just leave these services because they don't need it. But really what it's showing is that after some period of time, by building up self-sufficiency, PSH having the services available to you and having the stable housing that you get through PSH is why people are able to move on successfully and not re-enter homeless services.